The usual arguments against transgender people serving in the military are that we are a disruption to unit cohesion and morale, we cost too much. The same arguments were made against African Americans, women, lesbians and gays and bisexuals, and every time proven wrong. Before 2016, I could have been discharged for being who I was, and the career would have been over. I am a rocket scientist. I've been serving for just over 16 years. I've got a fantastic job leading development in offensive cyberspace and counter-drone research and development for the Air Force. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Bree Fram, and this is my wife, Peg.
Hi.
3 weeks after we started dating, I told her two things she didn't want to hear. One was that I loved her, which she was not ready for. And the other was that I knew there was something different about me. Saying I'm trans wasn't even in my language at that time. Living in the closet is awful, because if you say something wrong or do something wrong, all of a sudden everything that you've been a part of could come crashing down for something that has absolutely nothing to do with your ability to serve.
It's been a lot of years of anxiety and confusion and tears on my part.
It reached a point in my life that me being trans was going to be more public. There was something we couldn't hide from the kids any longer. At the time, it was just, well, Daddy likes to dress up, but that was in one ear, out the other. And Olivia, she had just been around it all her life. It was both a wonderful and still a bit of a feeling of trepidation that we had at the time. I was sitting at my desk in the Pentagon. I watched the Secretary of Defense speak and announce the end of the ban.
I'm announcing today that we're ending the ban on transgender Americans in the United States military.
And I had an email ready to all my colleagues. And I was so nervous. I hit the post, hit the send, and one by one, the people that I worked with in that office came over to me, shook my hand, and said, "It's an honor to serve with you." We were so looking forward to the ability to be open and be honest and authentically who we were. So after the shock of the president's tweets, we had a lot of people that thought they were going to lose their jobs the very next day, that their service was over.
I thought, there's been 15 years of devotion that Bree has given to the Air Force. It was really a punch to the gut. It's become a purely political move and what he thinks would be best for him at this point in his presidency.
We had the 4 service chiefs talk about the fact that there were no problems with people being trans in the services. And the president had said during the campaign that he was going to be a great friend to the LGBT community. As the formal policy was announced, there's a category of people that would be exempt from the policy. You'd be grandfathered in if you had this diagnosis of gender dysphoria on your record. A portion of the diagnostic criteria for having gender dysphoria says you must have clinically significant distress. And that's something I didn't feel, but it was something I had to get over if I wanted to protect our future and my ability to access care that might be deemed medically necessary by my doctor.
It's terrifying because it was put out as, if you do this, you're safe, your family is safe, you can continue getting medical care, you can continue to serve and keep your career. But in the back of my mind, there's always that fear that they're going to use that against them.
Throughout the entire process, it was just so much confusion and anxiety and worry because I'm relying on this scholarship to fund my education. My name is Pescara, and I lost my national ROTC scholarship because of Trump's ban on transgender troops. I really did think I was a boy growing up. I grew up around them and I participated in all their masculine stereotyped activities. I was just living the dream as a kid.
This is the only one of you in a dress.
Yeah.
I did see a change in those real formative years, 10 to 12, I guess. We never discussed MAP's masculinity or an interest in more masculine things. We actually kind of suppressed it, thinking it was just a tomboy stage. Probably 3 weeks before his 18th birthday is when he came out and told us, "Look, I'm I'm going to be trans.
Getting the support from my family that I have now has been a work in progress.
This is the child that God gave us, and we agree with whatever he determines himself to be because we have so much confidence in you, pal.
I remember in 6th and 7th grade, I would wake up an hour and a half before school started and go directly to the computer and watch basic training videos. It was just nonstop, just thinking about the military. And from my earliest memories, it's something that I've wanted to pursue. I got a 3-year ROTC national scholarship that I applied towards my admission to UT Austin. The whole Trump banning transgender people was up in the air at that point when I had received it. I just kept with the idea that there's no way that this is going to actually happen, this whole ban. Because it's idiotic. It's a discrimination against transgender people who are fully capable of serving in all aspects. When the Supreme Court ruled to let the military go ahead and enact it, I was speechless because it was just such a letdown in our judiciary system. Once that implementation date came out, April 12th, I didn't know what to do. Nobody told me you're being held to the old policy, you're being held to the new policy until April 12th, the day that it was implemented. My advisor told me, you're not medically qualified under the new policy. It's been a pleasure working with you, and thanks, bye.
We all just want to serve our country and do what we can to protect the people that we love. I know that I'm a trans woman and I love flying. My name is Natalie, and this ban is forcing me to make the impossible decision of following my dream of flying for the Air Force or trying to become who I am. I grew up in a military family. My dad was in the Air Force. I spent my entire life pretty much growing up on a military base. When I decided to commission into the Air Force, it was both a feeling of pride and doing what felt like the right thing to do for my country, but also doing right by my family. From as early as I can remember being 8 years old and just remembering that I felt like I didn't fit in with the boys in the class or in the team or wherever I was. Something just seemed wrong. And it wasn't until I finally got to college and was able to fully explore myself without the repression. I was transgender and I'm not a man, but I'm a woman. And as I kind of came to terms with that and started to figure everything out, was around the same time as he sent out the tweets with the ban. And I was in shock and my heart started to race. It was extremely disheartening. I was driving myself insane trying to figure out what my future was looking like now. The ban has put me in a position where it's a rock and a hard place because choosing to stay and continue to repress and stagnate the growth that I so desperately need to be my authentic self and my happiest and most productive in most everything. Do I put that on hold until I finally can start that transition, or do I find a way to break the contracts I have and get out while I can? I wouldn't be able to fly because the Air Force won't let you fly if you have a diagnosis of gender dysphoria. Everything is so variable right now and so just utterly chaotic.
So for people who don't have the gender dysphoria diagnosis, they're basically back to living a closeted life. Most of them are going to continue to serve, some are going to get out, and we're going to lose access to some of our nation's best and brightest. We are really in a position of privilege in that I am a relatively senior officer, I'm white, we come from a secure background. If something happens to me, I can probably find a job. There's a lot of things that we don't have to worry about that a young Latino or Black 19-year-old in the infantry, in the Army or Marines would.
This president needs to be held accountable for his actions to discriminate against Americans, the very people he serves. I didn't think it was something that people would care about. One kid who lost a military scholarship, my friend immediately said, you need to make a GoFundMe so you can come back to school. It raised over $27,000 in 18 days by over 700 different people. I don't feel like this is about me anymore. It's about calling a voice together to unify everybody who has been affected by this ban.
I'm hoping for either the day that I get out and I can start living my own free life, or the day that the ban gets lifted and I'm able to start being myself. There was a point in which transgender people could openly serve, and that existed. And I think it's foolish to think it won't exist again.
We are going to continue fighting and advocating for a return to open transgender service. No one gets in a foxhole when the bullets are flying and thinks about their gender identity. They think about taking care of the person next to them. And that's the entirety of the military ethos. We should not turn away anyone just because they happen to be something we're a little bit afraid of.